Wow, I can't believe it is June 1st already. And today, technically, we just hit our first five-digit podcast, number 10. So yeah, big number 10. So pretty insane that, we've been doing this already 10 consecutive weeks. And, for the most part, there's always been very entertaining things to discuss. Obviously, this past week, Elon's been visiting China. We had some, price reductions or credits that are going to be happening on the Model 3. Potentially, Project Highland is imminent. Obviously, once they probably blow through the inventory, I think there was some rumors that it might actually happen with Elon in China. And then, obviously, we'll talk a little bit about whether or not Tesla is an AI company. That's like, I think, the biggest buzzword right now. And Elon has made a lot of comments about how Tesla could be one of the most powerful AI companies, which is very true given their pure vision and what they're accomplishing already with general autonomy. And, there's probably a couple of other little topics that we'll have scattered in there. Jeff will be joining a little bit late, but of course we have our usual co-host, the famous Amy. Thank you, Amy, for joining us today. Obviously got the beautiful fire. Is it cold in Tahoe right now or where you're at?
Yeah, I'm at 6,400 feet elevation. So it's cold during the night still. Like I still have tulips and daffodils out in my yard. It's not rose season yet here because of the altitude. So it's always cold in the morning, but it will be nice and warm during the afternoon.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cold down in I'm visiting some family kind of in the San Diego area. It's pretty cold, cloudy down here. And then Joe, obviously our other regular
What
resident
up?
here of San Joaquin Valley. How's it going, Joe?
It is going great. As you can see behind me, the fire is also no.
It's a you need to change the background with an AI background. No one has as good of backgrounds as Amy does. Well, let's get into it. So, we'll just take a quick look at how the stock has been trending. I think last podcast I did the 5-day view, but really, Tesla has just been on a tear. This is as of last night, so I haven't taken a screenshot of it. If it popped even further this morning, it was a little bit up on the after hours, but this is one of those weird periods where, because Tesla is just one of those stocks. And again, Amy and even Joe, you both would have good knowledge on this. It's not really one that slowly rallies. You just have these huge swings up and down for better or for worse. And so this seems to be on, one of those pretty big rips, at least since the huge downturn where it literally hit like, I think, 101. Dollars, I think back in December and Jan or something around that time. So it's up 30% this month. I don't know if Joe or Amy, if you wanted to say anything, otherwise we can continue on.
Yeah, I think that what we're seeing here is that Wall Street now believes what we've been saying and that what we've been thinking, and that the second quarter will be the lowest that margins are going to go. And they now see that they think that the price cuts are kind of finished. That they like even Gary Black had a great tweet yesterday about how these new price cuts that came out were so different in Wall Street's view because they're clearly clearing out inventory in advance of the Highland Model 3 and not and just one area and temporary, and then margins would rebound after that, and that hit the valuation of the stock quite differently. But also, from a technical standpoint, people were really watching that $200 point, and if Tesla it was a resistance, and if Tesla got above it, they were anticipating this rally that we're seeing now. So I think that the news is pretty good. We'll see what happens in the market today, but it seems like a good trend to be on.
Yeah, it's very interesting because when Gary speaks, I love listening because his mindset is different from mine and from people that I associate myself with, like you guys. Because to us, it's like, well, duh. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what I mean? Like we're literally sitting in a room where we can see the action happening, and everybody around us, like looking from the doorway, are like, that's not happening. We don't see that happening. And it's like, it's literally happening right here. But they're just at the doorway and they just do not see it how we see it. And I've always been a proponent of really not caring what Wall Street does. I mean, like, I fell into a slump of thinking like, oh yeah, man, if only Wall Street. But like, nah, I don't really base my judgments on them, because they clearly are. They have a trailing mindset. You know what I mean? Like, they're always behind the retail investor in a lot of ways. I mean, we've been seeing it for years. Even with Microsoft, it happened. Like, they had no idea what the internet was or anything. You know what I mean? Like, it was phenomenal. Like they were like, what is this internet thing? And is it really gonna be, you know what I mean? And then now you have Jeff Bezos and everybody that took off. And it's just like, it's just wild to watch. And it's good to see some people come around, but I'm just like,
yeah. And I think even now we're still at that phase. So I just, some of the users mentioned, but the stock's up to 215. So if you look quickly, that's another 3% or something. So at least as far as the day goes. But yeah, so it's just like kind of like ripping right now. But as we all know, it's one of those things where when you can get into something like the Amazon before it's an Amazon, when it's more at the bookstore stage, and you then get to the point where it's like Amazon is doing everything now. They're doing like, they're essentially making all of their own products. They're doing pharmacy now. They're doing videos with Amazon Prime. They own Amazon Twitch. So they just, they're doing pretty much so much more than a bookstore. Do they still sell books? Yes, but that was like the gateway into everything. And I think that's ultimately what Tesla was. The Roadster and the Model S were the gateway into doing everything, selling not only just like one or two cars, mass production cars. And then they're doing energy. They're doing energy, which includes battery and solar. They're an AI company or a robotics company. And there's, general autonomy, which there's just so many things that they're doing. And now they're also doing complete vertical integration with the lithium refinery. I mean, there's just the difference is, if you kind of pull back the onion a little bit, like, there's just all this stuff that you can see. I didn't follow Amazon very closely, and it's not that I wasn't a believer. I just didn't follow it. I followed Apple a little bit more closely, but during the Amazon times, I bet you there was a clear indicators of like the stock just going up and down probably at some point, but really just like, this is more than a bookstore company. They're building an infrastructure that is so much greater than this. And now, and it's kind of the same thing. And I'm not saying, I don't know where Tesla's going to land. Ultimately, I do think it personally, again, there's not financial advice, it will become one of the most valuable companies in the world, if not the most valuable company in the world, just given what they're doing. But I still think we're, at those very beginning stages. There's just a lot more to come. They haven't even released their compact model. I don't even know what you call it, Model 2, whatever other people have called it, but they hate the name. But yeah, so it's really, again, it's it's good to have people like Gary. He does, keep more of the Wall Street mindset. He even said in the past, if he had too high of targets, he wouldn't have been taken seriously. I believe he's managing people's money at the end of the day. And so it's one of those things where, he has to be taken. He needs some street cred. So there is going to be a limit on, some of the things that he says. He's not going to say this is a $1,000 stock today. No one's going to probably take him seriously, even though that's stuff that is writing on the wall where, yes, it could easily go 5x. But yeah, so I think
Kathy Wood, however, she's a
exactly
little different.
pretty much. All right. So Elon had 2.5 big days in China. He met with the foreign minister of China. He also, I believe, I know he met with the ministers of commerce and industry. I don't know if that's on the next slide. Yeah, I think it is. But he also was seen with the Cattle CEO, which is the company that supplies all of the battery cells for Giga Shanghai. So I would love to kind of get your impressions. If this, not that we watch the stock, but what are your thoughts on this meetup, what this means, and just get your thoughts on these visits to China this past couple days.
Go ahead,
I
Amy.
think, yeah, I would say that there definitely was a little bit of a geopolitical risk overhang. We've had news of Apple looking to start some manufacturing factories elsewhere. Elon Musk has said that they'll announce yet one more factory before the end of this year, which I find exciting because they're already doing Mexico, expanding Shanghai, doing the Megapack factory in Shanghai, and expanding, simultaneously ramping Lathrop, expanding Giga Nevada, and then now Berlin seems to have a target of 10,000 vehicles a week, which will double their production. So there's a lot of growth happening, but I think that this just reiterated again Tesla's very strong ability to do business in China, which is a huge advantage. And China is now the number one exporter of cars in the world. So it's an important market both as a domestic market and as an important market as an export market for Tesla to be in. And then the fact that Elon Musk the meetings that he had there were very interesting, particularly with cattle, because once again, we have people wondering if Tesla's going to have enough battery supplies and cells to sustain their growth through 2030. Well, cattle is the biggest battery manufacturer in the world. Cattle has many supply relationships, and Cattle's building that factory for the Shilin battery, the M3P battery. That's right next to Giga Shanghai, but that deal is not officially announced yet by Tesla. Cattle is already a supplier for the LFP batteries, and I would anticipate that they will start providing a structural pack to Shanghai, just like BYD is providing to Berlin, where we can start using those dual castings, and then that starts taking a lot of the cost out of the car when you have a structural pack and dual castings, and it looks like maybe even the new drivetrain, which was significantly cheaper going in as well. So there's a lot of exciting news in the visit. One of the things he also met with was about FSD, because it's going to be a tough approval process in China. But the fact that he was there meeting with the government officials that can make it happen was a really good sign. I just found the whole visit very promising, even though we don't know the announcements and the deals that have come out of it yet. And it was particularly touching watching him speak at the factory. I mean, that was like, it's a short speech, but it was very heartfelt. And you could tell how much he admires the operation in China, what they did to ramp that factory quickly, and the quality of the vehicles that they're producing.
Yeah, Joe, did you want to go next?
I just think I think there's a lot to be said for Elon's ability to play chess in these type of scenarios. Like literally, what month is it? It's June, and in January, people were calling for his head. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like how quickly the tides have changed when all he has to do is his job, which we always said fundamentally nothing was wrong with Tesla. They were making more cars than anybody else on the planet every quarter, yet people were still like, well, if only they did this, and if only he was doing that, and you know what I mean? And people kept saying these things, but I was watching I can't remember who it was, but one of the things that they commented on was the fact that Elon, much like a politician, is when he does these things, he is making sure that no matter what type of geopolitics happen on a wider spectrum, like he is secured from that. You know what I mean? He gets insulated a lot from a lot of these things because of the type of celebrity status that he has. You know what I mean? Like everybody knows, well, everybody that we speak to, of course, everybody knows that what he's trying to do is for the betterment of humanity. So that's, you know, I mean, that's not understated. And I think like here in America, it gets kind of lost on us. Like, you know what I mean? Like we kind of view celebrities in a different type of way. And sometimes we just kind of think like, oh, they're just this and they're just that. But you can see like in these videos, I mean, they love him everywhere else except for in the country that he's making the most progress and where it started. You know what I mean? Like he gets all this adulation and all this greatness, and countries are like, please come here, and over here they can barely utter his name. So I think like from a political standpoint, the fact that the company alone was able to even be the first of its kind to actually still own its own business and still function in China was, I think, a telling point of his persona and what he can accomplish, and the fact that people kind of slept on that and kind of forgot who he was and what he could do, and just kind of thought like, oh well, Tesla's gonna have problems in China. It's like, no, Tesla's not gonna have problems in China because he's gonna make sure that they're okay. And Stephen Mark Ryan said something yesterday in his video about like, even if for, you know what I mean, on the craziest idea of ideas, that he's not able to export from China and they just have to stay local. You know what I mean? Like, and that's just that. There is no more China distribution. You still got the ramping up and the expansion of Giga Berlin. You still got like Mexico is going to happen. You know what I mean? He's like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like he's making these chess moves that like I said, like in January, nobody was even thinking about. Nobody thought about really Mexico. They were just like, well, he's just ruining everything. He needs to get back to basics and all this type of stuff. But you can kind of see, like, as the year goes on, you can kind of see that no, he's thought these things through. And if you just let it play out and let him do what he does, you'd be better for it.
Yeah, I think I personally, at least from what I've seen, I don't think there has never been, at least from what I've observed, one company from America do so well in China and
Right.
have the relationships that it has had. And so it's one of those things where I think, going into China, look, we got our special guest, Jeff. What's going on?
In the building.
Morning.
We're just talking real quick about Elon's trip. So if you want to, I'm going to hit this real quick. And then if you want to jump in, again, we're just giving overall thoughts on the trip and meeting with Cattle, CEO, the ministers of foreign ministry, commerce and engineering, or commerce and industry. But yeah, I think there hasn't been one company that I think has done better than Tesla as far as their relations go. And I think also too, Elon partially understands that. It also, I know some people, they want him to comment on some of the stuff going on in China, but he's being very strategic because he knows that the relationship there matters. He's not going to just go put a factory there, which is now, as Amy was saying earlier, it's the largest factory within Tesla. It's the highest output. They're actually even importing cars into Canada right now. There's no way he's going to be saying things where it's going to jeopardize the production and the output that's coming out of China, the quality that's coming out of China. And there was a lot of stuff that they navigated for. Again, it was, that small speech that he had when he went to Giga Shanghai. It was definitely very heartfelt because he understood what they overcome. He understood there is no other country right now that can ramp and put out certain things like China, right? There's just a mic drop, especially if back during early COVID, I don't know if some of you saw how quickly they were putting up hospitals. I mean, there's just something is very special about the way the Chinese will get stuff done. And so I think that the trip was very important to continue to build those relationships. Again, as Amy was saying, even you, Joe, as well, because it's just those relationships are what matters. It's not about having the best product. You could have the best product, but if you don't have those relationships, especially in the Chinese culture, that will make or break the deal. They will go with people that they have relationships with. Even if you want to work your way up the ladder, it's all about relationships. It's having your boss over for dinner. It's going out with his family. That's how you kind of climb the ladder there. That's how you build the relationships. That's just kind of the Chinese culture. And so for him to go out there, meet with the key players, and again, I do know that they are going to be expanding their business in China. It's just going to be more of like how much. Obviously, meeting with the cattle CEO is very strategic on probably like battery cell expansion, in the work that they're going to be doing. But also too, we know that at some point, Tesla will be building their own batteries, if not already, right? Well, they already are, but it's just one of those things where I thought the trip was very, very strong. He met with the right people, we know, and it was cool that he still stopped by the Shanghai factory, given everything that he was doing. But I thought it was important that he prioritized the ministers there, especially for FSD. I didn't even know that, Amy. So thanks for dropping that knowledge there, because getting into China with full self-driving will be a very key thing, especially given the amount of people there, the amount of roads, and how big that country is. Especially for general autonomy, there's not going to be a better company to go and tackle that. But Jeff, did you have any thoughts on his trip?
Yeah, no, thanks. I sound okay?
Yeah.
Audio-wise?
You're all good.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'll be brief. I'm sure all of you were very thorough. First trip in 3 years. I mean, that's pretty meaningful to China. I had some friends kind of message me back channel. I've worked with China for a couple of decades, and I think what people need to understand about like the politics and the kind of the whole approach to China is the people in China are like really great people. Like I have lifelong friends there, and when you're doing business in another country, just like if Chinese business people were doing business here, we would want them to follow our laws, our rules, our regulations. They expect the same for those doing business there. It's pretty rational. It's pretty reasonable. This is how it works. You don't go over there to really cause conflict. And if you go back to kind of the mission of Tesla and kind of Elon and his thinking, he's like team humanity. He's driving sustainable, the acceleration of sustainable transport. Well, how do you do that if you don't access the 1.3 billion people there? And how do you improve humanity, whether it's green energy storage, whether it's the safety of full self-driving that will eventually roll out there, so less people in China are involved in accidents. Like, how do you do that if you don't have the access? So I think it's pretty straightforward, pretty reasonable to me. But my friends are saying is just he's an insanely popular person in China, like with the Chinese people, and obviously with the Chinese authorities as well. But he's insanely popular with the people. I think they were calling him Brother Ma, which is a very kind of endearing term to a to a leader. They were jokingly asking, like, could you be the next U.S. president? Why can't you be the next U.S. president? So they're just, again, very well received by. You don't see as much of this maybe in the U.S. press about the visit, but he's received very well there. So I'm sure you covered the aspects of the visit, but super important to show face in China. It's just super important. That's how business is done.
Yep.
That's how things move. They don't move otherwise. They don't move really well with video calls. If you show enough face and you're there, you have that presence, then you can do more things on video and phone call, but you really need to have those one-on-one connections. So I think it was a super important trip, and I'm looking forward to any of the announcements that come forth.
Yeah, I think I agree with all that you said. Sorry, Joe, were you going to say something?
No, I was just thinking like what Jeff was saying, like looking forward to what comes out of this. I mean, you can just imagine what we're going to be talking about a year from now. You know what I mean? Like other areas of China and just things like that we can't even think of in today, but just the chess moves, man. It's just going to be like, I know, Jeff, from a supply chain standpoint, like there's just got to be so much happening with the CATL and like what Amy said with the FSD is just going to be like very interesting.
Yeah, and I would assume, especially as they think of the compact model, the next compact car, that's China's going to be a key part of that, because they're going to be the ones probably the fastest to put it up and get it up and running, depending on where they launch it. If it is going to be Mexico, but I assume China is going to be one of the key players in production for that. So I think it's going to be important, and they probably maybe even had some, initial discussions about that. But yeah, so sorry, Jeff, did you want to say something? Okay.
No.
So some of the other things, there was a couple, I might skip around a little bit just because I do want to hit on a couple of slides of just like some of the quick updates. So we got word the other day, shout out to Sawyer, got the word of the other day that, I think there's a lot of tax incentives that I think we talked about it last week in the podcast, that Tesla just continues to find ways into countries that make the most sense, taking advantage of every single incentive to and the cheapest way to get it in the country for customers, and also to just to make sure people are getting incentives. So they're now shipping from China, they're shipping into Canada, which is kind of funny. It's like literally up top, and they're just shipping it all the way from China. So I thought that was important. Anyone want thoughts on that? Otherwise, there was a couple other things before we get into Tesla's an AI company. I'm
curious what Jeff has to say about this logistically and why they would even do that.
Yeah, one of the things that happened over COVID, there's this explosion in cost structure, and one of the things was the cost per container actually ramped up to about $18,000 per container. And since then, it's right now, I think it's somewhere, depending on the spot price, somewhere between $1,250 to $1,400 per container. So from a logistics perspective, this started to make a lot more sense very recently. And then if you just look at the unit economics of something built in China and their cost structure there, and there's been some pretty good public reporting about where the gross margins are and the cost structure in China, especially on the Y. This now probably started to make more sense. By the way, this is not a reaction to in the last 3 or 4 weeks, is someone concerned about there's too much available capacity in China, let's just whoop up some Canada model. That's not how it works. These things start from a regulatory perspective many months in advance. Not saying that Tesla doesn't move quickly, they do, but there's a lot of things that have to happen, and regulatory is kind of on their own time frame and setting up these shipping lanes. But yeah, basically the unit economics very low out of China. The cost for shipping, that's what's really tipped. We're basically right now in a freight recession. If you talk to a lot of experts in the freight industry, warehouse inventory is really high, peaking over the last couple of years, and the cost per container is almost completely returned. In some places, it's even below pre-COVID levels. So we're kind of in a freight recession. It sounds. It's more of a slowdown. It sounds bad, but it's one of the things right now that's actually buoying a lot of the earnings of companies, is what's happened very, very recently with retail. And it's one of the with freight. And it's one of the reasons they're able to guide a little bit more strongly.
And I would, that's super interesting. If I hadn't even thought about how much the shipping cost had come down. But of course, that's a huge component of why this works now. I mean, it's key. The other thing is that Canada doesn't have the same requirements as the U.S. does to qualify for the EV incentives on where the battery is made. So this move allows Tesla to take all the cars that are made in the U.S. that qualify for the IRA, sell them in the U.S. And normally they would have shipped to Canada, but instead they're taking at least some of that production from China. And this model does qualify for Canada's EV incentive, being that it's coming in at a cheaper price point. So it's good for the Canadian consumers that can now get the Canadian EV incentive. It's good for U.S. consumers that have more production available with the Model Y, and it's just very typical Tesla to be very smart and strategic. Including the part I hadn't even thought of, which was the shipping containers being so much less now.
Yeah, it's a great point on the EV incentive too. It's really those two working together.
Right. Yeah, I do know at one point during during the peak of the pandemic, trying to get boats was insane. The cost went, several hundred X, if not 10X in cost. And again, I know Jeff, you would know more about that, but yeah, it's cool to see at least it come down and them be able to make that work coming all the way from China and still making sense so that customers can get that discount and, continue to move volume out of China versus, sitting on that inventory. So one other, some quick points that I wanted to highlight. Again, because I feel like the majority of the conversation today is probably going to be around this Tesla and AI company. But some quick points. Thanks to Joe for dropping these in. We heard that they're doubling the hiring for Cybertruck and the amount of roles that they have. 77 new related jobs to the Cybertruck that are being hired in Austin, mainly across manufacturing. We know that production is ramping and they're getting ready to start, setting these down the line. So really interesting news there. And then I thought this was interesting. I don't know, maybe we can even give some thoughts on this. Model 3 and the Model Y, both receiving discounts on their inventory, but mainly the Model 3, which is like 3,000 off. And, this is potentially showing signs that they're trying to clear inventory, especially because it's the last month of the quarter. And I remember even when I got my Model X, when they were releasing the Raven, they were just making the incentives very enticing for, the current inventory that they had. So I definitely think, obviously we all know that, there's been rumors, but they're definitely trying to clear out the inventory. I don't think there's going to be an announcement before they clear out all the inventory. That's typically how they work. I think that there was some rumors that something would happen this past week, but it doesn't make sense that they would release or announce something with a lot of inventory on hand. What that's going to do is that's going to make people trigger shy, and they're not going to buy these Model 3s. It doesn't matter how much you discount them.
Right.
Yeah. A couple things. Oh, sorry, Joe, please.
I was going to say really quick, because I remember Gary Black had something to say about this that I thought was something I didn't really think about, that it's a discount on the inventory models. It's not a discount on the production line. So I thought that was brilliant that he brought that up. And like I was saying earlier, because Jeff, you weren't here for that, but the way Gary Black views things and is the way Wall Street has a wider view of things. And I think that a lot of that had something to do with the stock price too. It's like, oh, they're not discounting what they're making. They're discounting inventory so they can get rid of it.
100%. And, I view this in a couple different realms. First off, we're outside. We don't work for Tesla. We actually don't know. We don't know the inventory. We know there's some listing with a web scraping tool, and there's Model 3s in that listing. We don't know what the multiplier is or how many there are, but there's a few, there could be a few thousand. But in the grand scheme of things, when you look at days of production, these aren't big numbers. So I believe that they have a really good, the biggest thing with inventory, and again, none of us know this, is the aging of it. And I believe they've got really low aging on their inventory, and they're moving it pretty quickly. And I do believe they're doing this in anticipation for a new model, but none of us know for sure. But I believe that's why they're doing this.
Yeah, totally fair. Amy, did you want to say something on this? Okay. And then obviously we all know the Roadster returns, production happening next year. So that's really exciting that they've reaffirmed that. I know this has been something that people have been waiting even longer than the Cybertruck. So, but really happy that they're starting to take more reservations. All right. So I think, let's get back to, Tesla as an AI company. There was a couple of tweets, Jeff and Amy, that, you were helpful in getting. Jeff, you actually got a response from Elon himself in your tweet saying maybe Elon Musk can ask David why CNBC doesn't recognize Tesla as an AI company when they're shipping the closest functioning real world AI to date. Even the AI community doesn't understand this. And then I'll let you get into that in a second, Jeff, on your thoughts on that. And then also to Kathy Wood said, in our view, Tesla, specifically the stock at 6 times revenue, is the most obvious beneficiary of the recent breakthrough in AI, as it aims for an $8 to $10 trillion revenue total addressable market in autonomous mobility by 2030. But based on our research for the last 5 to 6 years, ARK Invest sees dozens of AI winners. But and then there is one clip that I thought we could look at real quick as well. I know Herbert actually streamed this in his stream, I believe, a day or two ago. So let's just see.
Positioning here. I think to make it really easy for the person playing at home is you want to stick around. It's got to be above the 200-day moving average.
Can we hear that very well or not really?
No, not really. It's pretty low.
I'll just can't. Never mind then. So let's just go back into this. But yeah, it was something else backing up the stock and being seen as an AI company. But yeah, I would love to get maybe Jeff. We can kick it off to you on Elon's response to you when you posted this back on May 16th.
Yeah, and I saw both of those CNBC clips, and the one that you were just playing, that's a trader. That's someone that has their own opinions that comes on the show. Whereas the clip that I shared in the tweet that's on the screen, that's CNBC producers, those are CNBC anchors. That's the position of CNBC, which is to not recognize Tesla as an AI company. And you have to look at this in a couple of different ways. One, you have to look at it like, what could Tesla be doing so that's more visible and that's more easily understood, right? I was very lucky to be able to go to AI Day and listen to the team go through in great detail for 4 hours. That's more of a recruiting event, but for a lot of people, that was very informative in terms of like why Tesla is a premier AI company. You think what they're doing with a couple of tons of metal on the road and navigating these things with via AI, via real world AI, and what they're actually building it out to, it's going to be something that can actually meaningfully scale. Whereas I would say a lot of other solutions right now are more kind of lab based and more kind of like smaller installations. Whereas what Tesla is doing, the whole thing about AI, really, if you think about AI in any different realm, is about achieving scale, about getting responses, getting data more rapidly, reducing friction. And what Tesla's going to be able to do with automobiles, and they're going to be able to print, basically, let's forget about the money for a minute. Just talk about what they're going to do with safety, with crash prevention. How meaningful that is for society. I mean, you can't put a price on a life, and then you go look at the economics of it. And this is where I think, and again, this is maybe to some, to investors, this could be to our benefit. I kind of look both directions in this, but the lack of recognition of, I even heard this on CNBC and Fox News of like, hey, when are they going to get the robotaxi? When are they going to get the level 5 driving? And what consumers out there think in terms of level 5? By the way, we used to have this argument all the time doing mobile phone development with the advent of like water ingress protection of like, well, we're gonna mark the box IP68. Like, well, that means nothing to consumers. Consumers want to know, can I drop it in my pool and can it stay there for a half hour? Like those are the kind of things they want to know. They don't want to, know IP68. That's the same thing I think with level 5. I know it's got regulatory, meaning to it, but in terms of what Tesla is going to do, they're going to hit this intermediate step with full self-driving, where it's right now, it's already 1 in 4 people that can download self-driving and use full self-driving in the U.S. and the North America are doing it. 1 in 4 people who've bought the vehicle have either downloaded the monthly subscription, and it may be higher. This is a data point from Tesla from January. It may even be higher, but already 1 in 4 are using it. And I wouldn't, it's a beta version, and it's not, Tesla's telling you it's not final. There are bugs in the code. there's more work to do. But what it's doing today is exceptional. And what I'm saying is, from an economic value, they're going to be able to unlock great economic value prior to getting a robo-taxi service on the road. So that's why I took issue with that clip from CNBC. They're not even considering it when they're actually going to be right now. The revenues could grow into the billions pretty quickly with FSD.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of that happen, and it's just such a miss by people like I mean, like you say, he's a trader, right? So for him, it's like the daily things. He's not even looking at the fact of the future prospects of what could happen like a year from now, or even like.
Well, the trader actually got it right, Joe. The trader that was on, we couldn't hear the clip. He actually referred to Tesla as an AI company. He's actually been long the name since the early part of this year. He's the lone person on CNBC. The
other
producer
people that don't get
and
it.
Yeah,
CNBC just doesn't get it.
Well, it depends on who in CNBC you talk to.
Yeah.
Really. Amy, did you want to chime in on I can bring it back up on even what Kathy Wood said, or any of the other thoughts on Tesla being an AI company?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that Tesla does exceptionally well, that Tesla really needs to get a lot more credit for, is monetize tech in a profitable manner and do the research while still maintaining a profit. If you look at something like ChatGPT, I think, Jeff, you probably know this number off the top of your head, but didn't they lose like $1 billion, OpenAI, last year, before they actually started to be able to monetize ChatGPT? And Tesla was developing an equally powerful AI and making a profit, in fact, record profits, while they were doing it, and selling and monetizing a product, well, not the finished version of the product, already selling that product. And Tesla wasn't only doing FSD. Tesla also has auto bidder. So when you look at Tesla's energy product, the auto bidder is being used right now. It's a best-in-class solution. In some cases, Tesla gets to share in the revenues that are generated by it. And it's a very smart trading platform on the energy wholesale market on when and how to use those megapack battery installations and the virtual power plants, which could also be done with power walls. So Tesla has two different areas right now that they have monetized products at a profit, already paid for the development cost for the majority of them. And as these products just get better and better, the profit margin is just going to increase. The second thing about Tesla that people are not realizing is the only other company that I found that does both hardware and software for artificial intelligence is Google. Google has designed some of their own accelerators for the machine learning component and to speed up those training programs. But Tesla does their own chips for FSD. They've designed them. Tesla does their own FSD hardware, and Tesla has Dojo, which is going to be one of the most powerful supercomputers in the world, specifically designed for AI. And they're already hiring someone to write an API over that to be able to start renting the Dojo services out to other people. So Tesla is moving ahead, as we've seen in the past with other products, just very methodically and in a manner where they generate revenue for the company as quickly as possible. And compute power is going to be one of the major limiters on how many other people can enter the AI market. And Tesla certainly has the compute power. Tesla has the ability even to generate the energy through solar installations and through megapacks to power all this compute power, which is also important. That was one of the things they were looking at when developing Dojo, is how much electricity was it going to use. It's just all very, very exciting to me. And then that's not even getting into Optimus and the power of the visual-based learning and being able to process video like Tesla does. Now, Baidu in China is also exceptionally good at processing video. They do the social monitoring of the Chinese people and they've been doing it for years. So it's not that there aren't some other companies out there. Google also has exceptional AI, but Tesla is certainly at the top of this list. And you never hear that Tesla's name mentioned at the same time as you hear Google or an OpenAI. And then, I mean, look at OpenAI. It gets things wrong all the time, but Tesla gets something wrong with full self-driving and accident results. So Tesla is being held to a higher standard right from the beginning on their neural nets and the result of those neural nets.
Yeah, I think the fact that, real quick, Jeff, I think the fact that Tesla has so many different things and so many different people is just speaks to the enormity of the company. And I tweeted this out like, I don't know, like a couple of weeks ago about how eventually, you know, I mean, it's going to be a monopoly conversation, even though I don't think people like really realize the grand scope that, I mean, Tesla literally has its hand in everything, right? Here we are, you're able to talk about its robotics, its compute, it's, you know what I mean, it's energy, it's vehicles, like, I mean, software and everything. And that's why I think it's such a proponent of why it's on that list of companies that have progressed so much in the past like 5 years. You know what I mean? Like all those were tech companies. You know, not one of them was a car company except for Tesla. That's a car company. You know what I mean? I mean, that's just insane to me. But go ahead, Jeff.
No, Joe, that was great. I want to unpack one of the really great points that Amy brought up about it was a really good point about just in terms of companies that do AI hardware and AI software and how rare that is. And also kind of from the standpoint of like, you know, I've been in the industry, and I've bought, you know, we bought silicon from NVIDIA, for example, and we sit down with NVIDIA and we go through a roadmap and we understand like, okay, you know, what do you have this year? What do you have next year? And you know, we go through and understand the roadmap, and that's what companies do. That's what an OEM like Tesla would do. They would sit down with them. And I know Tesla has great respect for NVIDIA, and you should. I mean, they're a great company. But at some point, a couple of years ago, there was a meeting. They sat down, they met, and they looked at the NVIDIA, you know, solutions for self-driving in the automobile, and they looked at the performance, and they looked at here are the current offerings, and you better believe that NVIDIA showed their future roadmap and future offerings to Tesla. And Tesla chose to said, thank you, this is great, but chose to develop and to move out of NVIDIA and to develop their own hardware. And they have a really talented silicon development team. And I want to just make sure this is like really clear for people so they understand the distinction. When the Tesla AI, the Tesla silicon team that's developing the silicon, when they understand like, okay, these instruction set, how often, how many, how quickly do they need to execute? What are the frame rates coming off these cameras? They literally walk across the hallway and they're having a conversation with the FSD team on that. Or if there's something from a safety perspective for emergency and for safety, where there needs to be some understanding of like, how is this going to perform at the base layer of the silicon? They go have a conversation with the Tesla safety team. Now, take that same thing and now put yourself in the NVIDIA shoes. Well, who's NVIDIA having these conversations with? Li Auto, Volkswagen, you name it, right? Just a multitude of different OEMs. So it's what NVIDIA does in that situation is they put out a platform product. They say, well, we believe like this is the least common denominator, the best solution out there. And then OEMs have to adapt. Whereas Tesla is doing this under one roof, and all the way from the base layer of the silicon to the lens on that camera, everything is optimized together. And when you understand that from a performance perspective, and you understand that from a unit economics and cost perspective, you'll understand why they are actually going to be one of the greatest AI companies around. And when there's this tweet that went out about the top 10 companies that have the top 10 stock returns over the last 10 years, and I think Tesla was third or fourth, and he responded with ... for now. on the inside of Tesla, they understand what they're doing, and they understand that what I just described with that everybody talks a lot about Tesla's vertically integrated on the manufacturing side, but when you look at what's happening with silicon, with software, with AI, that vertical integration piece is insanely powerful. And again, I'm not taking anything away from NVIDIA, but to be able to bring that out and actually bring that to your consumers, all the way from the base layer of silicon to, to the consumer, I think is insanely powerful. I just wanted to unpack that point a bit.
Yeah,
That's
and I have
incredible.
one more point, and that's that these are the products that Tesla is doing with AI, but Tesla already has designed their own in-house software, and some of the positions they're hiring with are data scientists to go and look at their manufacturing processes, write algorithms, and discover, and they can start using AI for this. How can we make our manufacturing even better yet? When it comes to designing a part, Tesla can use AI to design that part. Tesla has the ability to do all of this in-house and even make their already best-in-class, more efficient than anybody else's operations, even more efficient, which is incredibly exciting.
Yeah, I don't think, I think, Jeff, I know you could spend all day just talking about the.
That could be a whole, what Amy just talked about could be an entire show, but it'd also be pretty wonky too. But if we got that far into it, but I think we should leave it at Amy's description, because I think there's a lot of examples of how they're using this in manufacturing. And I guarantee you they're doing this today. And I guarantee you someone like Elon, who is, this pro AI, is not only trying to put a consumer product out there, but when he meets with each of his team, he kind of pressures them of like, how do you get better? How do we get this? How do we do this more cheaply? How do we do this faster, better, higher quality? And you would do that through AI.
Yeah. And there's no one like to be able to, especially like to take autonomy. I think Elon has said, as big of electrification was, as far as like, where we've come and how big of a game changer that was to so many industries, AI is going to be that next big thing. And no one is able to see real-time data as fast as Tesla is seeing it and making those decisions. And the crazy thing is they're doing that on the road. They're doing that in Costco parking lots when I'm driving, Target parking lots. People are coming out. They did that even in the early days of like Smart Summon. But now they're also creating that robot that's making the robot and being able to walk around the factories, being able to put pieces together. And how many other industries are they going to be able to apply that to? And so I think it's one of those things where, as Amy was saying, it's like no one is making not only the hardware and the software, but being completely vertically integrated. And it's kind of scary too, Jeff, just in some of the stuff you were saying, where NVIDIA was one of their biggest, they're the chip supplier specifically for this. And imagine they go and have this meeting before they probably decided, because I think that's the thing about Tesla, is that there's certain industries that they're just like, I don't want to do that, but we will do it if we have to, like lithium refinery and probably a bunch of other things. And I actually remember there was so many calls where Elon would say, please, someone do lithium refinery, and no one did it. But, in the same situation where they're like, okay, where's the future of these full self-driving computers going? Like at what rate, what clip, all the frames, all the stuff you were mentioning, Jeff. And NVIDIA, I bet you the CEO probably even showed up, depending on, again, how big of a meeting that was. They showed, hey, this is where the future is. This is where we're headed. And Tesla probably consumed that information, left the meeting, and then we're like, I think we have to do this ourselves. There's no way. And so it's going to be pretty incredible, because I think if you think of NVIDIA just passed $1 trillion, and Tesla's still at 650 billion or whatever the number is now. And so they have one of the most advanced AI companies within house. And again, that hasn't even been factored into their valuation, even though some companies are talking about that. The solar and energy and batteries, that really hasn't, the mega packs, that really hasn't been factored in. So it's a little bit mind blowing that Tesla is accomplishing AI today. They're one of the most advanced companies. They're also building one of the best supercomputers. And Amy, you were mentioning too, they're even hiring someone to build an API on it so that people can pull that information. But it's really just speaks to the volumes of where this company is, how not valued they are, but how overlooked they continue to be, and where they're going to be headed.
Just one more comment on that, and it goes back to how Tesla's been able to install the FSD AI hardware in every automobile they're shipping, millions now. There's nobody that has FSD hardware in millions of vehicles. How do they do that?
Right.
And this could be a whole show in itself, but just getting back to the NVIDIA comment, if we were sitting in a conference or a boardroom and kind of making a make versus buy decision, one of the things I would bring to the table, if you look at NVIDIA's earnings statement, I mean, their gross margins are 65, 70%. And I bet you their gross margins are actually being dragged down by some of their low end GPU cards. I bet you in their driving solutions, they're probably making 75, 80, 90% gross margins. So if you're Tesla and you're looking at like, well, how am I going to get the economics of this right for my consumers and be able to put in millions of cars? It's not going to be paying NVIDIA 80% gross margin and buying their hardware. So I have to get better performing hardware, and we've got to do it in house. And so they're basically, they're a peer of NVIDIA. NVIDIA goes out, puts their pants on, and goes to TSMC and sends designs there and has them fab them for production, or Samsung or wherever. Tesla does the same thing. So I just found that interesting. The gross margin piece is probably another huge factor. Not only like how do you make FSD affordable, but like that decision to just go do that FSD hardware, that AI hardware themselves.
Wow.
Yeah, I feel like I learned a lot today. It's awesome just to hear so many so many things about this company that give it the competitive advantage. And Elon has always said their manufacturing is going to be their greatest competitive edge, but it's also going to be their AI. It's going to be their vertical integration. It's going to be also just the engineering talent that they're hiring. So pretty incredible. I know we're kind of getting close to the top of the hour. I think we could even hit on this all day. Some other things I just wanted to mention. India is actually asking Tesla for plans on, specifically what the not only what the time frame is, but what's going to be needed to set up the indigenous supply chain for domestic manufacturing. The government will reportedly finalize the kind of concessions it was willing to offer and their duration once Tesla submits the blueprint. So pretty incredible. Again, I think that everyone is seeing what Tesla is doing and they all want a piece of it. India is another big car market. So, I do know that the prices of their cars will have to be very competitive there, just given probably the average selling price of a car in India. But
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I think that we think that, but I mean, if anything, like the Model Y's history has showed us that it doesn't really matter what the price of a vehicle is. It can still be the best selling in the world if it's a compelling enough vehicle. I think we think that because of in America, that's just how things are. And when it comes to economics and social standings or whatever, but I mean, clearly, like Tesla's just in a league of its own when it comes to like a lot of these things. So I don't think they really. I know Gary Black talks about that a lot. Oh man, they need to have this sub $30,000 vehicle. I mean, yeah, that's going to be great also, but it doesn't change the fact that, I mean, the Model Y is outselling a Corolla, and you know what I mean? Like, and that's a sub $30,000 vehicle. You know what I mean? So I don't think they have to. I think it'd be great, but I think also this whatever the next gen platform is for the Model 3 might be like Jeff was talking about, in their margins might be well enough to where they can swing it.
I agree with Joe that I think that the Model Y is going to do exceptionally well in India, but I do think with the enormous cost to not only build your own factory, but convince all your suppliers to come and build factories next to your factory in India. That the fact that they're going to be able to promise them the extra volume with the Gen 3 platform helps make it financial sense, and helps convince the suppliers that this is something that they want to get on board with too, and this is something that they want to allocate capital to. But I think that everyone's going to be surprised at how well the Model Y actually sells in India.
Yeah, no, that could be totally totally a factor for sure. So I think, okay, so then there was a couple of other things. One last thing I just wanted to potentially close with. The NHTSA, closed the case. They were investigating 580,000 cars for playing games on the front center screen, which again is totally bogus. The NHTSA said, when they closed the investigation without seeking a recall, it was not indicating a finding that the NHTSA that no safety related defect exists. Furthermore, it does not foreclose the agency from taking further action if warranted. But again, I think we know that this organization has been coming after Tesla for a long time. So it's just great to see, I think, that they are continuing to win in some of these regards. And other ones, they just send an over-the-air update to fix a lot of their software. And then, of course, just wanted to close before, obviously, we thank our amazing hosts. If you're available on July 29th through the 30th, come to the Tesla Takeover. One new bit of information. There is going to be a drag racing experience. It's going to be happening either Saturday or Sunday with the Holly High Voltage company as well. So there's a drag strip probably like 15 minutes away. So that's going to be happening. So it's just going to be a very, very fun event, very family friendly. There's a whole kids section if you want to bring the family out. There's going to be a camping zone of over 60 exhibitors. Awesome. Some EVs. Who knows? Maybe we can get Aptera there. Tesla will be there. We're still trying to figure out what that looks like. And obviously your favorite Tesla personalities and YouTubers. And of course, the infamous May Musk is going to be there. So TeslaTakeover.com. Make sure to check that out. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you again to our three other amazing hosts for being here. Jeff, just always dropping amazing dimes on supply chain. And just all of your experience in that field over the past several decades is just invaluable in these discussions. And then thank you to Amy for, again, all of your experience and just the knowledge that you bring as well. And of course, thank you, Joe, for being here as well. But thank you all for just your time this week. But I personally think that the Tesla AI portion was my favorite. Learned a lot, and hopefully you enjoyed it as well.
Sweet.
All right. We'll see everyone next Friday at 8 a.m. Have a great week.